out of 12,000 billable hours, maybe there's like 30 hours somewhere where you quit, right? They were doing anything they could to keep this guy. So that was
yo, son.
Oh, dude, how this guy gets treated is going to dictate everybody else that has come to us in private saying,
God, boy, cooking early, kid. Early.
To try to take away his security clearance was that he had mental health issues.
Do not ask me why I got a hoodie on either, yo. I told you, I'm a New Yorker. That's what we do.
The allegations that were made against him, and they cleared him, reinstated his security clearance. He stayed on the job for a couple more months and then retired because he sees the handwriting on the wall, and he left. And that's when he started plotting the next chapter. And now we're seeing the backlash process firing up once again after he testifies in front of Congress in that hearing and offers to tell them more in a classified setting and spill all the beans.
Yo.
This article in The Intercept. Yes, The Intercept is Smash piece. By the way, we already knew all about Dave Gresh's PTSD. And at the time, his best friend was dear Gresh, talked up with blues on brains out, right? So he was like drinking, he was in a bad place. First day one, I talked to him, I said, what dirt are they going to pull up on you? If what you're telling me is true, they're going to get some dirt. And he goes, look, man, I have PTSD, I dealt with it, I survived it, nothing horrible happened.
I got to prep these ribs. Got a lot of food to cook today.
They come in and they try to discredit what he said because of his PTSD shit. And the things that happened to Lazar, you believe or don't believe, don't care. That did happen to Lazar too, where people try to discredit his character to try to minimize what he's happening. So we saw that with Dave. And that was only the visible stuff. I'm telling you, things behind the scenes that have been done to Dave and his family, it's disgusting. Like, not even just like pull your clearance kind of shit. Like, there are people that don't want him, that he's an embarrassment, to the Department of Defense. If what he's saying, when I'm school, what he's saying, I saw some BS. Like, they don't want that. So they are going to push back things. They know the intelligence community and military tipped off a report that said, go look for this.
Little Joe Rogan in the background, little Joe Rogan. Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp. If you're not in tune, I suggest you tap in. Some of these ribs are already prepped, so they're good to go. Drums is good to go. I got like 5-6 slabs of ribs, yo. I got ribs, beef ribs, pork ribs. Texas. Mike Hunt, hell no, son. I ain't seen son in a minute. That's my man's though.
It was a big success, to have this publicly. That is the first time in history that we have direct witnesses of two.
Shout out to the homies from Bocce's though. Gino just fucking requested me on a book.
Every millimeter of that territory.
That was random. Seen Tyree ass yesterday too. That was random too. Shout out to the homies.
That happened, and that's pretty telling to me. I think we should do it again.
See all this, all that white, you gotta cut that fat off, yo.
Found out about this stuff. He was tasked with trying to uncover it. Like his job. It was his job. And why did they? What was the suspicion? What was the?
I know some of y'all like, yo, why you eating that swine? Stop eating that swine, black man. Chill.
Recovered technology that is not made here, that we're trying to reverse engineer it and figure out how it works so that we can duplicate it. But who said that? So there's a UAP task force. So the UAP task force was formally created by Congress to look into the bigger picture. And
got some oxtails too.
Jay Stratton was the head of it. He'd been at the Defense Intelligence.
Shout out to my mom's today, her birthday.
He kept getting pulled back into the UFO arena from different jobs.
My nigga Los, shout out to his mom's today, her birthday also. Y'all already know Lundy's birthday was yesterday.
And photos of UFOs that have been
gathered by the U.S. military over the past 30 years. He'd give those presentations to Congress, to the Joint Chiefs, to defense contractors, because he wanted people to know about it. And as part of that job, you cite Dave to look into special access programs. Can you find evidence of crash retrievals, reverse engineering, any of that stuff we've been hearing rumored for 30, 40 years?
And this is really about oversight, okay? So the way I understand it for people involved is that, look, we have to have oversight over these types of programs and technologies. Like, it's good we're doing them. It's good we keep it secret, that that's their standpoint. But we have to have a process of oversight. Do you remember the church committee back in the 60s? Was it 60s, 70s? 70s. So the church committee. Everybody in the intelligence agency that I know will say there's BC and AC, before the church committee, after the church committee. It basically was a way to level the playing field so there's not this type of shenanigans that are going on, the fucked up shit they learned from the church committee. So what they're saying now is, look, some stuff needs to be kept secret for national security. If we can turn some of this shit into weapon systems, right? Like we don't give out blueprints to make an atom bomb. We admit atom bombs are real, but we don't give out blueprints. So some of it needs to be kept secret. But they're all about oversight. If you don't have communication between the subcontractors that are working on this exotic stuff, if it exists, we need to be aware of that at some level. We meaning Senate and Senate Intelligence Committee and all this stuff, oversight. So without that oversight, you're just letting people run amok and go crazy with this stuff. And I'll tell you firsthand, right? There are people that have come to me and George that are currently employed in agencies, and they feel like they are being held hostage in these programs. Like there's ways to keep people in programs and to not let them out by dangling this, like, well, what are you going to do if you lose your clearances? You're going to go work at Home Depot? That's the way that I've heard some people describe to me and George of why they're so terrified right now is because their whole lives, their wives, their dogs, their children are all dependent upon these little faction groups kind of keeping them in a program. If that's true, that's fucking horrible.
And what just happened to Dave Grush, the sliming of Dave Grush by this really pretty poorly researched article is an example of all that. Anybody out there is a whistleblower, you're thinking of coming forward and spilling the beans, this could happen to you. Did you ever have an affair? Did you ever have an element like kid? Did you have a drug problem? Because whatever it is, we'll find it and it'll come out.
It's interesting that they would use PTSD to discredit him for a war veteran. Now, it seems insane. You're shaming someone for seeking help for something that most soldiers come back and have to deal with. That's really insane.
Slow is what it is.
Well, it doesn't make sense either. It just doesn't make sense. Like, how can you do that? It doesn't make sense in terms of the reader's perception. Because I think most readers are going to look at that and go, well, the guy came back from war and he sought help. How many guys come back from war and they're fine? It's probably less. And quite a bit less.
And a lot of people never get over
PTSD
and they take their lives.
The number of veterans that take their lives in this country is astonishing.
It's 4 times as many that die in combat.
It's astonishing.
It's terrifying. Thank you for vocalizing that, because to me, I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, that's just some fucking egghead writer who has an agenda. But it's also, there's this natural inclination I think we all have to poke holes in something that seems fantastic. It's like, this guy, what is he doing? He's coming out, he's a whistleblower. Has he seen these things? Oh, he just works for the UAP task force, and he's uncovering this? Like, what do we know about this guy? Oh, he's nuts. Oh, he has PTSD. He was suicidal. He's making things up. He's unstable. Instantly, sort of dismiss.
And I understand, if I was watching this in 2D reality, and I was watching the TV, and I'm seeing these weird guys behind here, and I'm thinking, this is a setup. Like, I do see that, and I do see that, why would you take this seriously? But if you're in our shoes, mine and George's, and you see this kind of go through, and you talk with people on a daily basis, people come to you over years, you vet them. Man, look, from where I'm standing in the 3D version of this, I wish it was more organized. I feel like we're fighting, like pushing that at. Was what's that dude that pushes the boulder up the hill? Kind of keeps going down.
System.
Yeah, some Greek. Yeah. That's what it feels like, right? Like, one step forward, two steps back. I think we made a lot of progress, but I see how it looks so bizarre on the outside. But I will say for sure, Dave is who he says he is. He had the job that he says he did have, and he absolutely fundamentally believes that what he uncovered is non-human technologies, and he said that. And I believe that we have the right and the need to try to do discovery on that. And the only way we're going to do that is if people say, we want to know. And the hearings help with that kind of thing.
Now, this stuff I would imagine is very compartmentalized. So I would also imagine there's probably some people in government that, whether it's because of their ego or whether it's because of whatever position they have, that they need to have access to this information, or they want to have access to information. Do we know who does and who doesn't?
You want to go with me? Short answer is kind of. Like we kind of know, who has control of some of these programs now. George and I have never found somebody that knows the totality of it, but we have been, as he likes to say, pretty high up the food chain. So we get to a point where we get to people that have actively worked in what they call the legacy UFO program, or programs. So these are like the actual UFO programs that are not public. And when we get to people in that position, the brick wall for us is always this. They're like, I'm not for disclosure. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me to stop then. What do you mean? The public, you shouldn't kick a sleeping dog was one of the things we were told. And I'm like, well, what? Like, what is so freaking scary that the public would know something that even though we're friends now and you have direct knowledge that you, first of all, won't testify to Congress, we got no's. No way am I doing that. I'm like, why? There's something, and we keep getting up to that point where there's something and we don't know what it is. And maybe it's just they want to keep Gollum's ring, they don't want anybody else to have control of this shit. Or there's something they're not telling us that is so gnarly that they don't think people can handle it.
There are, different scenarios you can explore. For example, you ask, what could be so terrible that they can't tell us about it? Let's say these aliens, wherever they're from, made us, that we're a genetic experiment, that they created our religions, our religious figures, that we are an agricultural product, that somehow they harvest us, that our time is limited, that once the experiment's over, we go away.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Design our universe, design universe in the schools. And I wrote a column about it and just said, hey, be careful what you wish for, because you might find out that the intelligence.
I know it may seem boring now, but don't worry.
Might be some alien science project or something.
It's all part of the plan.
You can imagine a lot of different things that would be really disturbing to people to come out. I don't know if that's the reason for the secrecy. I suspect that this has a lot more to do with national security, us not wanting the Russians and Chinese to know how far down the road we are.
We know that to be true.
We've been told that you can't tell your friends without telling your enemies.
It's probably a multi-layered reason.
Yeah. I don't know the top layers.
It's interesting because how would they know the top layer? I mean, what kind of confirmation would you have to have that we were genetically engineered? Like how much data would you have to have before you accepted that?
So you got compartmentalization, you said, right? So I know a guy in the 70s who was working at Lawrence Livermore Laboratory. He's not ready to break from the fold yet, right? He's not ready to do it. But he was working on supercapacitors in the 70s or something. And he said something like, I know the 3 companies that make these. He was given a device with no markings on it, no nothing, and he was to reverse engineer it. He's convinced this was not made by us. It was so efficient, almost 100% efficient. So you get people like that. Was it like a supercapacitor? Is that the word for it? Superconductor. So it was just some device that he was, as an electro kind of specialist, was working on. But this is just a one-off story to give you an example. Exactly, this is superconductor. I don't know if that's what Google's for.
Yeah.
I wish I was.
Superconductivity would allow the transfer of energy, and they're trying to get it at a low temperature.
Right.
This means an electric current can flow, but the electrons are jostled around a bit in as they move, so they lose energy as they travel. This jostling is called electrical resistance. In a superconductor, there is zero resistance, and an electrical current can flow perfectly smoothly without losing any energy.
That sounds right.
And so this is something that apparently, so this was something that was just discussed like recently about superconductor at room temperature, and it's kind of debunked.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I saw that. Was it debunked?
It's been debunked a couple of times. They keep trying taking another stab at it.
It's like Chinese propaganda or something.
No, I think they couldn't replicate it or find out what it is.
That's as far as I don't think that's exactly it.
Yeah, they
They couldn't replicate it.
Right. So check it out. What I can say is, so I have two pieces of graphene, and they're like these little squares. And one is the metamaterials, meaning it doesn't occur in nature. We made them. I have two pieces. One piece is a 3-degree variation from perfect atomic layering. The other one is like a 7-degree variation from perfect atomic layering. So like graphite from a pencil, I think, and they layer the atoms perfect. The one that's 7-degree and the one that's 3-degree, if you have an ice cube, and I take the 7-degree of orientation off from perfect, and I push it into an ice cube, it's like a hot knife through butter. It instantly gets cold, and your finger gets cold, and it stops in the ice, right? Because it's transferring the heat. I guess this is a superconductor, and then it pushes the heat from my fingers right in. So that material has unique principles and properties because of the way they atomically layered it. The 3-degree one, it goes much deeper and faster because it's like a faster transaction of that heat. So we learned that metamaterials, when we orient them, we make them in a certain way, they have special or unique properties. So back to this guy. A lot of what it seems like we're doing is trying to get derivative technologies from something that's more advanced than what we have, and it could be little things. So all he saw was a superconductor. Okay, I believe that's the right word. That's all he saw. He only has suspicion. It's never been put to market since the 70s. What the fuck? He worked on one. So that's one type of whistleblower or witness that we got. But there are other types. There are other people that are like physically working on the machines. Then there's people that are just in a bureaucratic role. Then you've got people like David Grush who do discovery on finances and programs and interview people. This whole tapestry or mosaic of individuals leads me to feel that where there's smoke, there's fire. All of this, there's something to it. It's just, where is it from?
I think we're in kind of a pushback mode now, though. Since that hearing, that might have been the high water mark. Jeremy and I have been talking about it publicly for a while. The closer we get to the goodies, the closer the public gets, or Congress gets, to actually seeing the saucers or finding out where the programs are, the harder these guys are going to push back. The true keepers of the secrets have dug their feet in. I mentioned about this House Chairman, Intelligence Committee Chairman. He represents Frank Patterson Air Base. He gets a lot of campaign donations from the aerospace companies. Frank Patterson, of course, home of Hangar 18 and all the rumors about Roswell wreckage and other things being stored there. That's his district. He's the guy that said no more hearings.
Representative Turner, Western. So he kind of put the kibosh on it.
Claims China is a bigger threat to U.S. than aliens.
Okay, well that's probably true. I mean,
They're probably doing a lot of stuff.
I would say that's
Do you guys remember the American Computer Company? Do you know that story? The American Computer Company, I'm pretty sure that's the name of the company. American Computer Company had a whole section on their website about the back engineering of technology that came about from the Roswell crash, and about how Bell Laboratories in New Jersey had an Air Force base right outside of it that was supposedly to protect New York City. They're like, but the problem is New York City's, you gotta fly over to New York City. Like, it seems like it's protecting Bell Laboratories. And Bell Laboratories is where he said that they back engineered all this shit, including fiber optics, including like the discovery of a bunch of different things that came out supposedly of back engineering that wreckage. See if you can find that.
I mean, I hope that's true, dude. I hope that if we have
This is the accuracy of it. Phil Corso is the guy writing
The truth is out there, and so are the cranks.
from 2000.
Yeah, it was is the company existing?
I don't think so, but this is
Okay. Don't believe everything you read online. Computer company and Secret Alien Research have been around for 4 years. Jack Schulman, owner of American Computer Company, now operating as CompAmerica.com, posted a story to his website claiming that Bell Telephone Laboratories had stolen the idea for the silicon chip from the alien spacecraft that supposedly crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. Prior to Bell's announcement that year that John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and William Shockley had invented the transistor, computing had depended on vacuum tubes. So why is it that 50 years on, we can't use the aliens' technology to violate the theory of relativity to travel beyond light speed? It seems that the cartel of technology companies and oil producers have colluded to prevent the development of high-speed chips. Mr. Schulman posts his theories at RoswellInternet.com, where he also claims to have invented PCs and Windows and to be working on a chip that will run at 12 terahertz, 1,000 times the speeds of today's fastest CPUs. One way you can guess the veracity of web rumor is the writer's typing style. If an author randomly switches to uppercase for effect, then he's probably a crank.
That's the only thing I can really find right now.
That's a fucking half-hearted attempt to dispute what he said.
There's a guy named Bill Corso who was an Army colonel. He worked in this technology office in the Pentagon. And he's the guy who came out with a book on the 50th anniversary of Roswell. He said, I saw that stuff. We had it in a couple of file cabinets. And he personally took it to Bell Labs, claims to have given them the chips that inspired the later work. A lot of people don't find it incredible that he takes too much credit for doing all kinds of other things in history. But I met him before his book came out years ago. And Bigelow and Helmut and those guys went back to see him at John Ballet. And they thought he was credible. They didn't necessarily believe everything he said, but it goes right along lines of what you're saying.
And so, what did he describe that he saw in those file cabinets?
He said fiber optics, computer chips, among other things. I think he said night vision was inspired by something they got out of those chips. Out of those ships.
I have no idea. It would be so cool if we had success in derivative technologies and they were in our hands. I think I would like to believe we were more responsible with that shit. I know for a fact, and George can attest to this, that the UFO topic is taken at the level of above weapons of mass destruction within our government, within government agencies. Like, they take it that seriously. So that is not a throwaway statement. I'm telling you, I know that. And George can attest to it, right? So here's the deal, man. If that's true, then I do understand the perspective. Whoever gets the technology first wins. But my understanding is that we have not been able to duplicate the core technologies. And if that's true, because it's so far ahead of what we got, what we can do is kind of like get derivative technologies. All you have to know is what the legislation is put into the National Defense Authorization Act. I know that's not a word that normal people can understand or hear about often, but I've become educated on it. So the National Defense Authorization Act of 2024, it ends up being signed, hopefully by Biden. Any president has to sign it. And also the Intelligence Authorization Act. So the language that they put into these is all people need to know, because they wouldn't fabricate this out of thin air, and they wouldn't spend resources on creating this language if they didn't have more than a good suspicion that we have this kind of tech and we're trying to reverse engineer it. It's online. Anybody can look at Schumer, I think, put out a big bill, and then there was an amendment to it. And if you read this language, they're like, any of these
It's only 9:30, y'all.
they were so
Feel like it's later.
if they're being hidden in private technology, we're cutting off your funding. So that they've got
They trying to have me a late night last night. That's all I'm gonna say about that. You know what I mean? Holiday mode was activated though.
90 days once it's signed, and you tell
Shout
us
out to you, baby.
technologies that are not from here, then there'll be no penalty to you. If you don't tell us, your funding is cut. We're going to find out your funding is cut. So it's like a carrot and a stick kind of thing. If you read this language, it's almost insane to read, because they know these programs. Now, where the craft, where things that they're working on are from, how do we get there to know that? I don't know. But they do know that we have this shit, the craft of unknown origins.
They use the term non-human intelligence in that legislation 26 times. I mean, it's astonishing. There's this Senate Majority Leaders, Chuck Schumer, standing up there in a nod to his late mentor, Harry Reid, saying we're going to get to the bottom of this stuff, and it's real. And he acknowledges that that legislation was crafted with the White House's cooperation. So it's the Biden administration, somebody in the administration signed off on this. It's astonishing.
People don't like it though. Like if you're in the IC and you've got these like secret, programs, or if you're like, let's say you're Lockheed and you got some really cool thing, you might be like, move it now, because I don't think they're really worried about funding being cut off. I think a lot of these black programs, symmetrically, like in different ways than you have like from Congress. But I'll tell you, that language tells you everything, because it shows you that they are taking it so seriously, that they have some sort of pre-knowledge that these programs exist. In fact, they probably know where these objects are being stored. Now, you said some number, you and I might talk to similar people, but definitely that number's, floating around. I have no idea if that's the correct number. I just know that they have been told where these hoarding facilities are. They have been told. All they gotta do is get the authority to go knock on that door and go inside.
What is the explanation of how we acquired these crafts? There's crash retrieval, but then there's also ones that are intact.
Remember, Lazar said that nearly all of the ones that he saw, except for one that had a big hole in the middle of it, all of them intact. It was they were dug up at archaeological sites, or there were gifts, like throwing a cell phone into a chimpanzee cage. Here you go, crazy humans, knock yourself out. Let's see how you do with this. That they're just left there for us to find, and as a challenge to us, I guess.
Yeah, I have the same problem as you. Like, I'm like, this motherfucker's not crashing. If they're coming from somewhere else, they're not crashing.
Right.
But people will say to me, look, man, we have airplane problems, and sometimes even planes crash, and maybe there's other circumstances where these things could have crashed because they were hit with some technology. Maybe two of them were dogfighting.
Electrical storm.
I don't know.
That was a Varginha, Brazil story, right?
Right.
Electrical storm.
Also, radars, people suspect that really powerful radar can interfere.
Right. Some of the radars are also weaponry. That's the thing. Like, you can have energy reception, but also output on something. So there's some cool devices that actually shoot like high laser weaponry. But my thing is, I don't know if they really crashed. George is kind of edging towards maybe archaeological things, maybe gifts.
Lazar said that one of them supposedly was from an archaeological tip, right? Yeah. Do they know where?
I know.
No, he was just literally, that's one of the many things that they tried to impose upon him. But remember, they tried to impose a lot of shit on Lazar. He is so succinct with, this is what I know to be real. I had hands on this. Now, they told him a whole bunch of crazy shit. You know what? Dude, just the like, I should put that shit out. I'm just crazy. Like,
we are viewed by the aliens as containers of souls.
I mean, you're not going to tell the guy working on propulsion that. So he was able to sit down for a brief time and go through a document, like a huge briefing document. In there, he saw what they said were a biological biopsy of an alien. He didn't care. He was going to the propulsion part. But they told him so much wild stuff. He's like, this has to be a joke. But then when he said, he differentiates. He goes, but you can't fake, he said, what I saw. You can't fake your hands trying to get close to the reactor and not being able to touch it. You can't fake something that big lifting like that. So he says, I know for sure what I worked on was not from here. John Lear. Remember, he's like friends with this guy, John Lear, who's like already on their radar. The best photo area from lake level ever was 1977, the year I was born. John Lear's kicking it out there, stirring up shit in there, taking photos. So he does a whole panoramic of photos of Area 51, sees a truck coming from a distance. being John Lear, takes the roll, puts it under his ashtray, puts in new film, snaps it again, they confiscate his film. But he had some underneath his cigarette lighter, whatever. And he gave those to me. So I got the best shot of Barry Fitzgerald you'll ever see from lake level was by John Lear. Now Bob knew John. That's where all the conspiracies come in, because John's like this UFO guy, the godfather of conspiracy. But when
How's Bob meet John?
well, this is your church.
Yours?
Was a
Post exposure, post.
he met him before he worked out there. It was a guy named Gene Huff who did a real estate appraisal for John Lear's house. And Gene was friends with Bob. And Gene and Lear struck up a conversation, brought Bob to meet him. And it was only after that Lazar got hired out there. He would have arguments with Lear about this crazy UFO stuff. Because I'd already done a couple of interviews with him in the late 80s with Lear before I met Lazar. So Lazar was not a believer. He said, I don't believe it. Poor John, he's crazy with this UFO stuff.
So this is back, and it's so funny, like knowing all these guys, I wasn't there like he was, but I get to talk with him and grill him. I think it was Jim Goodall that was in the car with him. He remembers Bob saying, oh, poor John Lear. And Jim Goodall was like, why? Because he believes this UFO nonsense. So that was where Lazar was at prior to getting the job out of the Tesla. Is he didn't believe any of this nonsense. In fact, so much so that, remember, I think he told you when he first went in, they had a little decal of an American flag on the saucer. He thought, oh, those idiots, everybody thought, UFOs are from outer space and they're ours, you know? Right. And then he quickly realized, wait a second, that, this can't be ours.
It's fascinating to see now that the Crush has come forward and gives us credence to. We have reverse engineering programs. We have a crash retrieval program. Aerospace companies are stashing this stuff in some hangar somewhere. All the stuff that Lazar said is being true. They now say, oh gosh, I guess it is true with that Lazar. He's still a liar. We don't believe him. You have to kind of do some mental gymnastics to do that.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating when you see these crafts move exactly the way that he described them in 1989.
Yeah. Straight up,
It's pretty wild because they're seeing footage from like, what is it, 2014 or something?
yeah, the gimbal.
Yeah, it's like he moved exactly like he described. Turns outside, shoots off.
So that's it. A common thing is Bob Lazar must be the luckiest con man on planet Earth to get so much shit right for all these years.
What's the controlled disclosure campaign plan?
Well, this is listed at the bottom of that document to talk about the NDA 2024 is the UAP section.
Controlled disclosure campaign with respect to identified anomalous phenomena recorded records originated prior to review.
This is review board. I'm not sure what this is. It talks about all the they get all of this information, and you better give it to them as well because they want to set up a review board that would basically declassify stuff that they come across.
Yeah, I'm being told by people involved that that's not good enough. Like this is one step, which is to get this presidential review board and get a bunch of sociologists and scientists and some Nobel Prize winners, and you look at what can be classified for the American public in a controlled way, and that's really nice. They're doing it, but everybody on the inside that I know is like, we need a church-style committee. It's not okay to just have a disclosure panel. You need oversight, and to get that oversight, we need access. The only way that we're going to get that is by forcing senators. Where are all the senators in all this? This hearing with all these Congress people. Where are all the senators listening to the public, being like, okay, I'm going to get after that? They're the only ones with the power to create a church-style committee. Where are the senators right now? And so that's really, this language is so important. I hope people go look it up and they read it because it's just astonishing when you hear what they're actually doing. I think it's a good step.
I find this all a little weird too. The exercise of eminent domain.
Yeah.
They can go and take anything from anyone who's got anything.
The federal government shall exercise eminent domain over any and all recovered technologies of unknown origin and biological evidence of non-human intelligence that may be controlled by private persons or entities in the interest of the public good. Wow.
Yeah, dude.
The the fact that that is in that paper is crazy.
So it's not passed yet. So they're going to debate this when we get back from what they call recess now. So it's really good that everybody hears this. This is going to be debated by your representatives. This needs to pass, or we're screwed. This has to pass, and then the president has to sign it.
It's important too. You got to figure that if, say, Lockheed or one of these big aerospace companies really does have this stuff, it's incredibly valuable. I mean, it would be worth untold millions of dollars in technology that could change the world forever. So they don't want to give it up. If not just for national security reasons and because of the value of it, monetary value. So this would change that and take it. I mean, I guess you could apply to L115 if there's a piece of that laying around somewhere.
Well, I mean, actually, they did say private or corporate kind of. So it's like basically. So I have two emotions about this. One is like, so the government gets to come and take everything. Like that feels a little weird. But I do believe the spirit of this is to get to the core of the question. Have we been reverse engineering technology up from here? And if we have been, there needs to be oversight. So I am for this, but this is not going to help the American and global public learn more. And that's the thing we have to remember. That's why Grush can't talk unless he's in a sketch with people with access. These people are not for what George and I are for, which is that we need to know the truth about this. I want to agree with the truth about this, but this is not going to tell the American public the truth. What it's going to do is within the intelligence communities, it's going to inform everybody on a bigger scale, which means we can have better scientists on it, we can have better people working on it. I do hope that splashes over to the public, that we get to learn more about this, because I want to learn more about it.
Of course. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
It's just wild seeing that language. Yeah. It just does not seem like they would put something like that in there unless they knew something.
Yeah, exactly. This is Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, who got up. He didn't just slip it into the bill. He made a big deal about it. He made an announcement, a speech on the floor, and emphasized that, having that non-human intelligence in that bill 26 times is astonishing. And the fact that he says the White House supported it shows how far we've come in a short period of time. I mean, I never saw that coming from Schumer. We knew that Marco Rubio and Kirsten Gillibrand of the Senate were into this issue, but did not see it from him.
Where are they now? So right now, why is it being so damn quiet? The thing is, they need to fight in order for us. We need, one last thing, we need like a church, in my opinion, we need like a church style committee where we get more information to the public, because I want the public to know as much as they can.
Don't you think they're probably quiet until more information comes out? Like they're just kind of like waiting to see what becomes of this?
Who's waiting in the Senate?
Yeah.
Dude, the thing is that if I had a political career and 100 things that I'm dealing with, the public wants to tell our representatives what we want them to do. So are they kind of sitting back and being quiet? Maybe. I know Rubio came out and said, look, they're so careful of saying what they don't know, and I appreciate that. But he's like, look, I have been testified to, people have come to me and our groups, and they said that they're worried about their own well-being, that they have directly worked on these things. So he is being informed, and maybe they're being a little quiet, but now is the time for them to pass this through. They have to debate it and go for it. And this is a big opportunity that we have now to get closer to this truth. It might happen, it might not.
The fascinating answer was the guy saying that it's not public. God, I wish I knew rather what that meant. Because the big speculation, there's a bunch of big speculations. The big one has always been that we were genetically engineered. I mean, that's something that Zechariah Sitchin talked about, when describing the Sumerian text. Those ancient clay tablets that show this very large, strange-looking humanoid with a humanoid on his lap that has a tail. It's very bizarre.
It's like childhood exams. Have you read that book, Arthur C. Clarke?
No.
So how they acclimate human society, if I remember the book properly, is they have all these motherships just hover all over the earth, and they sit there for generations, acclimating people to them, because the ETs or whatever, they've got a problem. The problem is, they look like the fucking devil. Like that was the book. I don't mean to give away from people, but it was so crazy. you think, if this is true, I say if this is true, if we're being visited by something,
Yeah.
what could be so powerfully devastating that these keepers of the secrets have literally, all of them, pretty much stopped at the same place and talking to me and George, which is like, I am not for disclosure on this. There's something they're not telling us that is so heavy.
Well, it could be a bunch of things, right? It could be the fact that they do want to get control of technology before enemies do. That makes sense. But it also could be the genetic engineering thing, because there's a weird thing with human beings and lower primates. Lower primates are all still around, you know, and there was a bunch of different kinds of humans that didn't make it, you know, Neanderthal, Denisovan, and there's a bunch of other ones there. They keep discovering new ones. But God, there's a giant leap between us and the other primates. A weird one. Real weird. We vary so wildly in terms of how we look. We vary so wildly in the environments that we can live in. We have a hyper intelligence present in everything else that's on the planet. But giant leaps above in terms of our ability to manipulate our environment. We're not like anything else. And you know, the thing about when you look at us and you look at primates, you go, oh yeah, we're similar. You know, you look at us and you look at chimps, you look at, you know, bonobos and stuff, like, yeah, I guess humans are kind of similar to those a little bit, like watching Chimp Empire and show on Netflix. Yeah. But boy, big fucking difference, and they're still around. They're still around looking exactly the same. And we somehow or another advance to this very bizarre thing that flies around in metal tubes all over the planet and sends video through space. We're so much different. And, you know, they are our ancient ancestors, right? They're our ancient cousins. Like, what happened?
Would people freak out if that story came out?
Yeah, well, I think it would really throw off the rest of religion, for sure. You'd have to I think religion would probably adapt, and you know that this was also created by God, these messengers of God or something like that. But probably come up with some sort of, if that turned out to be absolutely true. But you know, the doubling of the human brain size over a period of 2 million years is the biggest mystery in the entire fossil record, apparently, and they don't know. There's a bunch of speculation, a lot of like questions, guesses, and you know, different things that we could have done that could have facilitated that, but that's a big one, man. That's a weird one.
That's a weird question about that, right? So this is something I'm struggling with. Like, could you tell the general public that the base understanding, you know, that we're not alone, that there's some craft from somewhere else we don't have to say, well, we don't know. Could you tell them? Could you say that to the public officially in some way, and still avoid what they call strategic surprise, like this idea that like we can work on it and work on it really well and make sure that we don't get strategically surprised by another nation. You can keep your security in place. Could you do all of that if you let the one thing out of the box? If it was officially acknowledged that we're not alone, or do you think people would just start going crazy for more answers? Because I think that's the fear of people. They can't just say one thing.
I think in today's day and age, with the news cycle that we have now, where things are just in the public eye, out instantaneously, nothing sticks. Everything keeps moving. There's scandals and wars constantly. I don't think it would register. I think people would have to have actual physical encounters with UFOs before it really made sense to them. Because I think right now it's just this idea. It's in the air, it's vapor, it's just like you can talk about it if you like, you can read about it if you like, you can watch blurry videos if you'd like, but it doesn't have any weight in your real world. Now, if we start seeing them, you know, they're like hovering over Los Angeles and they're undescribable, they rocket off into insane speeds and the smaller crafts come out of the mothership, and if that kind of shit happens, that would get real weird. That would get real weird real quick, and that could lead to chaos. That could absolutely lead to chaos. And if we somehow or another have proof that maybe we are some sort of science project, or there's some product of genetic engineering, or maybe the human farm thing is real, that they literally created us to try to get us to do things here, or to try try to recreate souls, which is like a very bizarre thought. The soul is a thing that we carry around inside our body, and then there's some sort of value to having so many souls.
That's like, oh, this is old school. This is my gateway drug into UFOs was John Lear. At first time I sit down with him, he's like, got this big cigar, and he's looking at me, and he's like, we're all property. We're property. And he talked about it, and he was talking about how the aliens saw us as kind of like a wine, and our bodies are containers, and our souls are being matured as like a commodity. For these, like he was a wild dude. Like I'm not saying I believe any of this. I'm just saying he gave me that idea that
He said matured, like is the soul of an intelligent person more valuable than the soul of a dummy?
I wish we had asked John Lear that he's dead.
You know what I'm saying? Like what does that mean in terms of like aging our souls, maturing our souls?
Maybe through experience, like hardship experience, love, joy. Like maybe I'm just talking like crazy right now, but this is something I could do the John that John would say every experience you have in life is what makes your soul mature, from your joy and your love to your hate and your anger. Live without envy, hate, or greed. That's my John Perry.
Wow, it makes sense. If your soul is ultimately a representation of who you are and how you stand in life, it would make sense that would be fortified by your life experiences. They would make it stronger, like everything else. Like your life experiences make you wiser. If the soul's a real thing, the more value you put into the world, the better you behave, the nicer you are, the more you learn to be honest and truthful, all the different things that we hold up as high qualities for human beings. It would make sense that would like enrich your soul
and just get better in life, right? Like if you 20 years ago and you today, we all hope that we look at our past self and we say we've learned something. Sure, become a better person, become more loving, empathetic, better and more creative at presenting ourselves into the world and making a difference. So that's a cool way to look at life. That was his cosmology.
It's a fascinating idea, but what's terrifying is that if we're a commodity, then we're like beef cows that are eating all the grass that we want because it's valuable for them to get fat. The chaos on this planet is actually engineered to ensure more rich souls.
You guys should talk about that.
Yeah, I know some people that have been pretty far up the food chain and believe that there is mass manipulation of human affairs on a global scale for reasons that we can't understand.
And mass manipulation by humans or non-humans?
Non-humans. Manipulating humans by non-humans to do things that they want us to do.
What kind of things?
For example, there's what's it called, the Godspeed, a guy named William Bradley, an attorney, sets out to write a book about the causes of war. And everywhere he goes, throughout human history, he finds evidence of some kind of a exterior manipulation of human affairs, that they somehow benefit from us killing each other on a massive scale. William Bradley, Godspeed.
And what is the speculation? Like, what could it be that they would benefit? How would they benefit?
So maybe it's souls, maybe releasing souls that they can recycle. I don't know. It's been 25 years since I read that book, but it's worth a read. I look back at the earlier this year, we had 3 UFOs, we used air quotes, shot out of the sky by the U.S. military. That's the story that gets printed in newspapers. The U.S. military shoots down 3 UFOs, one of them being a Chinese balloon, or whatever the other ones were. But, the public paid attention for like 2-3 days, and then it's like, hey, what's the new Barbie movie coming out? There's Blue Grandpa coming.
That's that news cycle. It's pretty wild, but it's also, again, you can only hear about UFOs for so long. And I'm a nut, obviously.
Your friends here.
I can only hear about it for so long before I'm going, I need something. I need to see something. Show me some metal. Show me some hardware. Show me a fucking frozen beam. Something. Just,
UFO fatigue, bro.
Yeah, it is good. I got it too. I hear it all the time. I mean, don't tell tell me anymore. I don't want to hear about any whistleblowers or hearings until you show me the flying saucer that Danny laid by. Yeah, and we get that all the forwards going. Of course we do. You go, well, I mean, you guys, I mean, George, when did you first break the Lazar story? Was that 89? 89, right? And when you broke that story, was that your introduction to this world, or had you already had a curiosity? I had done some stuff starting in 87. It was John Lear. John Lear walked into the station with a stack of documents. He helped us write the story of the secret plane out in the Nevada desert that was invisible to radar, stealth fighter. And so he had some credibility with us, and he plopped those documents on the desk of my managing editor and my buddy and mentor, Ned Day. Ned, this is your next big story. It's the biggest story in history. Here you go. Ned looks at a couple of pages, shoves the file back across to Lear and said, this can't be true. If it was true, I'd already know about it. You know, he's kind of cocky, like many of us are. And so before Lear left the newsroom, I said, let me take a look at that stuff. So he gave me all these documents. Most of it was stuff from the Freedom of Information Act. You know, these agencies like the FBI and CIA, before FOIA was the law of the land, would deny that they ever did any studies that had any interest whatsoever in UFOs. And when that was signed into law in the mid-70s, they had to release thousands and thousands of pages that didn't lie through their teeth that they had been studying it. All these pages of information, of studies and experts and panels and all kinds of things like that. So Lear gave me that stuff, and that's how I got hooked, is the paper trail that established that our military, our intelligence agencies were telling the public one thing. Don't worry, you're pretty little heads. Pay attention, move along, nothing to see here. But behind the scenes, they took it very seriously. They were very concerned about where these things were from and how this technology works, and the fact that they can't do anything about it. So that's how I got hooked. In 87, I started reading about it. And then meeting Lazar in 89, almost by chance, and realized, all right, look, I'm going to report on this. I got to really dig in and learn everything I can. And I was cocky enough to think, well, give me 6 months, I'll have this whole thing figured out. You know, that was 36 years ago. Wow. It's kind of crazy to see it now in front of Congress. I had a moment. I did. I had a moment. I just kind of had to bow my head there, but it came over me after all this time. Seeing what was happening unfolding in front of me, I just never thought I would see it. And what was really amazing is the partisan divide was gone suddenly. There is an issue that the two sides, far left, far right, can agree on. There's AOC and Jamie Raskin on one side of the room, and there's Tim Burchett and Matt Gaetz on the other. And they're all asking questions. And it's not just questions prepared by staff. They're doing follow-ups. They're into it. It was amazing. It was just absolutely amazing to see it. Have you heard any speculation as to why they want to hide the information? Have you heard anyone that says that this is why?
Yes. So, to the best of my knowledge, directly to so many times I can't count, is strategic surprise. That we have to be ahead on this. That we know that Russia has a UFO exploitation program, reverse engineering. We know China has one. Like, these were theirs. Like, they couldn't be having these huge programs they've actually announced and bragged about in China. So, it's strategic surprise. Whatever we can derive from these technologies, we know that it can be weaponized. We know that it is so powerful just by the propulsion systems alone, how they move. They suspect it's gravitational. Just like Lazar said, the top dogs that we know that have worked on this problem set for our government believe by observation that these propulsion technologies are gravitationally based. With that said, it goes back to Lazar. We can't produce gravity. But what if there was, he said, something that produces gravity? So if that is true, that they know that just even the laser weaponry technology that a colleague of mine and George actually did study for our government, I don't know how far I can go on that one, but that's true, that the people are looking at unknown technologies and exploiting them for laser technology. That's factual stuff. He'll take more about it later. So, if we get left in the dust, everybody believes we're ahead right now in the secret little reverse engineering. Why do they believe we're ahead? Well, maybe it's hubris. I hope we're ahead. But everybody that I know and everybody that George knows believes that right now we are still ahead on these reverse engineering programs. So let's just couch this. Let's believe it for a second. Okay, we're reverse engineering your lows.
Okay.
It has been conveyed to us in the most direct sense that we believe we are ahead right now. But the way China works, they can quickly get a quick advantage because they don't have the same restrictions that we have. They can control every piece of that program, no questions asked. We can't quite do that. So there's a fear that we're going to be left in the dust at some point, and we'll have what they call strategic surprise. So that is a good reason that I understand that people want to keep this shit under wraps right now. I don't believe that if they said, look, you've been seeing them all through human history. We're now capturing them on multitudes of corroborative visual types of evidence, from thermal to radar. That's the big deal about what George and I released about the 2019 swarms. It's corroborative visual evidence, right? Now that we have all these sensors that are so cool, just tell people, whatever, we're not alone, whoever these are from, maybe we don't know. I don't know that that's going to go over so well, but I feel like we should tell people that if we find out it to be true.
So most of the reason why they're withholding the information is not worried about the collapse of society. It's worried about having control of this technology.
Yeah, I believe so.
There's no way you can separate national security issues from this. The last time I was here, Joe, we talked about nuclear incidents where UFOs appear over nuclear missile facilities, missile bases. They disable those missiles. That's happened in our country. It's happened in Russia. I don't know if it's happened in China, but it's real. You could neutralize the entire nuclear arsenal with one of these machines. Now, that's real national security. Our government says that, this is Project Blue Book because there's no threat to national security. It's clear because national security of the government can control our nuclear weapons. The friends of mine, as far up the food chains I've gone, have said this: you can't tell your friends without telling your enemies. You can't tell part of the story because no one would ever be satisfied with part of it. You can't be halfway pregnant,
National security, I get that. Like, I get that. I understand that explanation. There's just a step further that I'm not understanding yet. Yeah, but I understand the national security.
What do you mean by step further?
Like what we were talking about before, like what is it that's so devastating? Because we get to that point with people sometimes. What is it that's so devastating? Like they're okay with us reporting on stuff like it's friends, like they're like, I'm not going to inhibit you in any way. George and I are in a weird position. So of course people are always trying to trick us. All the time, every day. Like major good tricks. They would love us to fuck up.
Like CGI video.
Sure, like you send me stuff sometimes, like we're trying to think about it. So imagine that on like a